Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope the day's going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. As always, thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It is the morning after Arsenal's 3-0 win against Slavia Prague yesterday in the Champions League, maintaining their 100% record, level at the top with Bayern Munich, or Bayern just ahead of them on goals scored. So we're going to review that game in today's show. I did do my immediate sort of match reaction and player ratings show last night, but I'll go over it a little bit more in depth today. Look at what Mikel Arteta had to say about the game, talk about the records that just continue to tumble when it comes to Arsenal at the moment. Got lots of reaction from you guys on the result and the performance as well. So plenty for us to get stuck into. And what was just another nice, comfortable, routine Arsenal win. I just seem to be repeating myself at the moment after every single Arsenal game. It was a classic European away game, I thought. Especially how it all started with Slavia being very physical, very intense, probably having the better of the first 15 or so minutes, had a few shots, none of them on target, none of them really threatening David Raya's goal or anything, but had a few shots. And you just thought, okay, Arsenal, get yourself into the game, and then let's see what happens. That's exactly what they did. It was about a 10-15 minute period when Slavia were on top, but then Arsenal just gradually got on top. Quality started to show. They started to control things, and they ended up going on and getting a convincing win. Bukayo Saka obviously scoring a penalty, and Mikel Merino getting a couple after the interval. I mean, Marino's fantastic. We'll talk about him in a little bit. In terms of the first half, obviously the penalty was a key moment for Arsenal. They just started to turn the screw by that point. I did think it was a penalty. Maybe I'm just saying that because I've got my sort of Arsenal hat on, but the guy's hand was up there. I know he said, and I was reading an interview of him after the game, and he's convinced that he headed the ball onto his hand. And obviously in the Premier League, if you deflect the ball onto your own arm or hand, then it can't be a penalty. I'm not sure if that rule is the same in Champions League or not. But from the replay that I've seen, a couple of replays that I've seen, I don't see it hit his head. I see it hit Gabriel's head and then go straight onto his hand. I don't see a deflection off his own head, and his hand is up there. It's not the best position to put your hand in. So you're opening yourself up for trouble when you do that. But Bukayo Saka took the penalty really, really well. 1-0 at half time, and then it was the Mikel Merino show after the break with another 2 goals for him playing in that central striking role. Which his numbers, I tell you what, when he plays in that position, you know, there may be some negatives to it in terms of how Arsenal play and how Arsenal struggle to sort of stretch the play with him in that striker role. But when you look at just purely down to his numbers, he is very hard to argue with. He just pops up. He's got a knack for scoring. You know, Mikel was talking about him after the game about the sort of transition to him playing that centre forward role. And he said, I always look at Marino and I've said to him, you know, finishing, you're excellent, especially one-touch finishing. And he's right. You know, the amount of one-touch finishes Marino gets, when you look at the number of goals he scored, just off the top of my head now, I haven't even thought about this, but both of them last night, one touch. You know, the Real Madrid goal, one touch. His header against Chelsea last season, one touch. You know, they always seem to be one-touch goals. Both of them against Leicester that day, when the first time that he played in the centre forward role as well. He glides into the penalty area. He finds space. He's got a knack for it. And when he does get a chance, whether it's on his foot or it's in the air and it's a header, his finishing ability is just very, very good. You know, when it's off the cuff, when he doesn't really have to think about it, just has that knack of scoring, and that's really, really valuable. You know, I'm desperate for Victor Gyökeres to come back. I don't really want to see Marino playing as that central striker for too long. It looks like we'll certainly have to see it again against Sunderland at the weekend. But obviously, I want Victor Gyökeres to come back very, very quickly and play that role. But you can't complain. It's really hard to complain about the job that Mikel Merino does. He's just doing a fantastic job for the team, and he did that again last night. And those 2 goals obviously won Arsenal the game. I mean, you look at the numbers at the end of the match; it was very, very comfortable for Arsenal. When you look at the XG there, 0.46 for Slavia, just under 2 for Arsenal, 14 shots for Arsenal, 9 for Prague. They did get a shot on target. I think that was right at the end of the game. Arsenal had 8 on target, you know, dominating possession as well. So this was a really good European away win. They had to deal with a lot from Slavia. It was a very physical game. It was a very bitty game. It was just free kick after free kick. Really, really scrappy. But I thought Arsenal dealt with that very, very well. On the whole, they didn't get sucked into any of the sort of stuff that Slavia were clearly trying to get them to wind them up with. It was a very physical battle. And, you know, Mikel spoke about it in his post-match press conference when he was talking about the win. He said, "I'm really happy with the win. It's 4 in a row now without conceding a goal. A really tough place to come. I told the boys the game that we had to expect. It's a team that is super intense, very direct, man-to-man, so very short sequences of play, lots of fouls, a lot of restarts, very difficult to get any fluency in the match. But if we were patient and emotionally controlled, we were going to have our chances. And the way they set up, we did that. I think the margin at the end looked comfortable, but I don't think it was a comfortable match at all. Not only the win, but also the fact we had some players who haven't played much, playing and performing really well. Mikel stepping up as a 9 and scoring 2 goals. Max making his debut, the youngest ever. And Andre Hermann-Else as well. So a lot of positives tonight. And you saw Mikel actually at the end when they went over to the away fans. Mikel looked really, really happy. Like really, I mean, you see the picture on YouTube. I think this was actually it. It was a picture taken of when he was applauding the away fans. There was, he just looked so delighted with the win because I think he knew it was a really tough game. As he said there, he prepared the players. He knew what Slavia were going to do. He knows how they set the teams up and how they play. And I think he was really delighted with the way his players got through that, especially given so many of the attacking players were absent as well. So really good win for Arsenal. Job done. 12 points from 12 in the Champions League. 4 wins from 4. No goals conceded. It's been an excellent start to the competition. That Bayern Munich game next, that is going to be some game. Obviously, it was a really special night for Max Dowman. We've been waiting for this since the Champions League begun this season, and he got his moment yesterday, coming on in the second half. Now, the youngest ever player in Champions League history. What a moment for him. What a moment for Arsenal, but what a moment for him. Imagine when he walks into school. Probably not today. I imagine he got today off because he wouldn't have got back till the early hours of the morning. But imagine when he just walks into school tomorrow. I mean, that is a proper head held high walk into school. It's like, yeah, I'm just the youngest ever player in Champions League history. Special night for Andre Hermann-Else as well, making his Champions League debut. What a week it's been for him, starting against Brighton in the League Cup, coming on in the Champions League against Slavia Prague. Looks like the elder statesman at 17, but a really special night for him as well. And it was just a night where the records continue to tumble. We've seen that with Max Dowman breaking a new record. Bukayo Saka became the first ever Arsenal player in history to score in 4 consecutive away games in the Champions League. 8 clean sheets in a row now in all competitions for Arsenal. That's the first time they've done that for 122 years. I think if they keep a clean sheet against Sunderland at the weekend, that's a new record. For Arsenal, they've conceded. They've gone the last 8 games in all competitions without conceding a goal. That's a joint record for an English top flight club. Won the last 8 games, not gone. They've won the last 8 games in all comps without conceding a goal. And that's a joint record for an English top flight club, along with Preston in 1889 and Liverpool in 1920. It's just remarkable, really remarkable what they are doing. And you just got to give them so much credit for that. And like I said, if they can do it against Sunderland at the weekend, that's going to be a club record 9 consecutive away games. And you look at the run they're on now, it's 10 wins in a row in all competitions. 10 wins in a row in all comps. And you look at that there, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see all of those wins, starting with Port Vale way back in September. And then going up to Slavia Prague yesterday. They've conceded 1 goal in that run, 1 goal in 10 games. And that was that Voltemada goal for Newcastle in the 2-1 win. Way back at September the 28th was the last time Arsenal conceded a goal. It's remarkable. I mean, you think where we were a few years ago and think of the goals we were conceding and how open we were and who we had in defence, and you think to where we are now, it's just absolute chalk and cheese. It really, really is. You've got to pinch yourselves at times to think what we're witnessing at the moment with Arsenal. It's still a long way to go. Of course it is. And we know in football things can change like that. But for now, we've just got to enjoy what this team are doing and what we're seeing every single match day. It's going to be really tough on Sunday. Really, Saturday at Sunderland, really tough, especially with the injuries that Arsenal have. But if they can get through that, if they can just find a way to win, 1-0, ugly goal, I don't care. They can just find a way to win and get themselves into the international break, having won 11 games in a row. There'll be a remarkable run from this team. Right, I'm going to go through my player ratings now. Okay, actually, before I start this, so there was a comment on Patreon, and I think the post. Let me get the message. Here it is. It's from 20 years ago on Patreon, and I think you posted on the Discord as well. The same comment. It's Nick was your name. Hi, Nick. So I just wanted to respond to this. It was quite a long message, so I'm not going to read it all out. But you were talking about me giving David Raya a 6. You're like, what's the primary purpose of a goalkeeper? It's to keep the ball out of his net. And you say that I apparently disagree. I absolutely don't disagree. And again, I just don't. I think me giving Raya a 6 in these games seems to generate more debate than anything else. And I gave him a 7 at the weekend, to be fair. But I just thought yesterday, and 6 is not a bad score. Like I gave one area 6. I gave Saka a 6. That's not saying they did bad. They're just doing kind of what I expect them to do. So they got a 6, which is where I start my ratings from. And that's why Raya yesterday did what I expect him to do. I didn't think he did anything less. I didn't think he did anything more. So it's just a 6. It's not a bad score. It's just that's what I expected you to do yesterday. He had a save to make. I can't even remember the save, I have to say. And he did everything else really well. He did it well. But it's kind of what I expect him to do. That's the standards I have of David Raya at the moment. I just didn't think he did anything to sort of raise it up to a 7. That's not me having a go at David Raya. I love David Raya. I wouldn't have any other goalkeeper in the world than David Raya. He's a brilliant goalkeeper. When he is called upon, he's fantastic. Commands his box really well. There was a couple of clearances yesterday that made me a little bit nervy. He almost got one charge. Well, he did get one charge down, and then he managed to gather it. The ball fortunately bounced back into him. So I just don't think 6 is a harsh score for David Raya yesterday. I really don't. But I absolutely know, I do understand what the primary purpose of a goalkeeper is, and I'm not knocking him. And you said that you sense I'd give Raya greater marks if he allowed a goal each week, but provided a worldie save or two. It's not the case. It's just it was so. He could have been reading a book yesterday for the majority of it. I know he plays a part in these clean sheets. Absolutely, he does. The work he does with the defenders, how he sweeps up and stuff. But I didn't really see that much of that yesterday. So that's why. But honestly, I feel like I explain my ratings for Raya more than any other player at the moment. It's tough. It's tough, but it's just my opinion. Remember, it is just opinion as well. So I gave him a 6, basically. After all of that, I gave him a 6. I gave the 2 fullbacks a 7. To be fair, I could have, that was quite a harsh score almost, because they were both good. I mean, I looked at Hincapie's stats at the end of the game. Quietly produced a really, really solid performance. I think he won all 8 duels yesterday that he competed in, which was more than any other Arsenal player. So it was a good first start for Hincapie. I gave him a 7 and gave Timber a 7. I gave the 2 centre-backs 8 just because I loved that battle they had with the big physical centre-back. It was a really, really strong one. He was really trying to wind him up. He was getting stuck in. Gabriel especially was really, really sticking to him, and they both had a really good battle with him. So I gave them both an 8. I gave Norgard a 7. Some stuff I liked about Norgard's performance. I thought it took him a little bit of a while to grow into the game. Again, a couple of passes went astray, but as the game wore on, I thought he had a good showing, Christian Norgard. You got to find a way. I know it's tough, but for those sort of players who come in who have really sort of struggled for minutes, and Norgard's right at the top of that queue, it's quite hard, isn't it, to just be able to expect to come straight in and be at your very, very best. So there's that sort of balancing act of trying to find enough minutes for him to keep him in some sort of rhythm. So when he does come in from the start, he can hit the ground running. But I thought he ended the game very well yesterday, Norgard. Ethan, I gave a 6. It just, he didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't do anything, amazingly spectacular as well. It was just a fairly average sort of performance from Ethan. Same with Bukayo Saka as well. I know Saka scored the penalty and it was a really important goal, obviously, to give Arsenal the lead, and it was a great penalty. But sort of performance-wise on the whole, I didn't think it was Saka's best. I didn't think it was his worst. I just thought it, again, similar to Raya, similar to Ethan. It was just kind of where you expect from players, the sort of the minimum from players. So I gave him a 6 as well. Rice I gave a 7. Trossard I gave a 7. Marino I gave an 8, obviously, for the 2 goals. I give Marino my man of the match. Hard not to give it to him when he scores 2 goals in the second half like that. So the subs who came on, Eze played the sort of largest amount of any of them. Didn't really make too much of an impact. I think him and Ethan playing in the number 10 role, the way it was such a scrappy game, just so stop-start, I think it was very hard for a playmaker to really get any sort of influence in that game, because it was a tough watch. It was definitely a tough watch. And then obviously big moments for Max Dowman, Harriman and Noose. We had Ben White and Miles Lewis-Skelly come on as well. I was surprised White didn't start that game yesterday. I really thought he would, but Timber got the nod again. So those were my player ratings. yesterday. Let's move on to what some of you guys have had to say before we wrap this one up for the today. Ryan has got in touch and says, while Mourinho doesn't offer the traditional things like Gyökeres does, have to say his level of finishing has to be one of the best at the club. Feels like every time he scores beautifully taken goals. You're right. As I was saying earlier, it's just got that knack of being able to get himself into some space and be able to finish really, really well, more often than not, first time as well. Once again, our only complaint is the other side had one shot on target. No team has given a right to win trophies, but my God, surely this squad are too good enough not to, provided we aren't gaining new injuries, which we feels like with every game now. BRT674 says Bayern next to no Luis Diaz. This should not be downplayed. Bayern will be without their winger who has 18 goal involvements in 17 matches. Yeah, Luis Diaz got sent off yesterday for Bayern. They had a brilliant win at PSG. Diaz got sent off. He scored twice in the first half, 2-0 up, and then got sent off before half time. And then Bayern were having to sort of hang on in the second half. João Neves scored for PSG, and I watched the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of it yesterday. But to be fair, Bayern just defended really, really well, even with 10 men. And they've won 4 out of 4, same as Arsenal. So something's got to give. I saw Joshua Kimmich's interview afterwards yesterday saying that Arsenal game will be a real test in terms of Bayern to show where they are. But at the moment, I think they've won, 16 games in a row? They haven't even drawn a game this season in any competition. It's just been 16 wins in a row to start the season. You've got to say they're probably the most informed team in Europe right now. So that game is going to be massive. 2 teams with a 100% record in Champions League going head-to-head at the Emirates. It's going to be one hell of a match. And yeah, no Luis Diaz, but they're so strong by, I don't know who will come in for him. What will it be? Serge Gnabry? I don't know. What was it? Elise on the right, Kane up front, and yeah, probably Gnabry on the left. Do you think? I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they've got such a strong squad. They'll be able to cope with the absence of Luis Diaz. Gordon says, yes, definitely a pen. It was the hand that put the ball out of play. Yeah, I think it might, but Gabriel got his head to it. It might have been going in before it hit his hand as well. Mourinho, very valuable at the moment. Always seems to be in the right place. Rice got through without a booking to face Bayern, who also kept the win run going. Something has to give in the next round. Bring it on. Yeah, that is going to be a hell of a night at the Emirates. Bucklebury returns, says the ref wasn't the best, but to give him credit, when it came to the second look at a decision, he made the correct calls. Can't always say that when it comes to the use of VAR in England. If I have to hear someone defending a 2080 call with the referee's interpretation just one more time. Yeah, I know what you mean about that. Yeah, I didn't enjoy the ref's performance yesterday, I have to say, but he did get those 2 decisions right. He didn't have to take too many looks at them. I mean, the penalty decision that was overturned in the second half, for Ben White foul is absolutely the right decision. But some of the, it was just did not stop whistling. I mean, the yellow card for Norgard. I mean, my goodness me. Norgard gets fouled, gets stamped on, his foot stamped on, and Norgard gets the yellow card. Imagine if that was Declan Rice and he'd have missed a Bayern Munich game because of it. I mean, I would have been absolutely fuming. Sam says 4 teenagers on a Champions League away game and a clean sheet. Can't complain. Absolutely, Sam. We can't complain. Couple more now. Matt says Mourinho has been such a valuable addition to the squad. An unusual profile for sure, but a valuable one. Been a lot of focus on his limitations, but where would we have been without him? Yeah, really, really valuable. He's so like Edu. He reminds me so much of Edu in this team from Edu back in the Invincibles days. Whenever he was called upon, he was just such an important key guy. You could always depend on him. Maybe not the most glamorous of players, kind of different to what you'd normally expect from a Brazilian. And I suppose Mourinho, you kind of look at times, think kind of different from what we've come to know to expect from a Spanish midfielder. But both of them, in their own way, in their own teams, have been really, really valuable. And Mourinho absolutely continues to be. Mr. Quenda says, hi, Charles. Here after the Prague game, I would just like to give Mikel a hell of a lot of credit. Top of the Champions League, Premier League, through in the Cup in a season where we've had such a tough start. He's also matched our clean sheet record, had the youngest ever player in the Champions League, and done it all without some of the big hitters. Well done to him, the boys and the coaching staff. Come on, you Gunners. Yeah, really good comment there. And when you put it like that and you read it like that, top of the Champions League, or joint top of the Champions League, Premier League, through to the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. Despite the fixture list Arsenal have had, despite the injuries that Arsenal have had, it has been a really impressive start to the season from Arsenal. And long may that continue. Right, that is it from me. I should have said at the start, I totally forgot. Inside Arsenal Extra Time with James Benge. We're going to record that a little bit later on today. So if you want to get involved in that show, you want your questions answered, an opinion answered, comment answered, anything, just get down into the comments. Leave it as usual with Extra Time at the front, at the top. Leave your comment, your question, and we'll pull some of them together and get them included in the show a little bit later on today. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.